All right, everyone, welcome to my portfolio critique. My name is Bailey Henderson. I am a creative technologies major with minors in environmental science and entrepreneurship and innovation. During my time at Berry, I've also worked as a property and casualty insurance agent for a little bit over 5 years, which helped me get a pretty unique experience during my time at Berry and helped me look at things in quite a different way. Um, for me, creative technologies was introduced through Chris Whitmire's creative computing class, CSC 103. That's really where I learned a lot about what it meant to be in creative technologies and also some more skills like basic programming and including one of my favorite projects, the final game, where I got to develop my own video game. To think about my time here at Berry and what kind of projects I wanted to include in my theme, I really focused on projects that made an impactful impact on either me or my time at Berry, and also ones that had the greatest potential to help others. With that being said, I found a theme that best fit my projects, and that is data-driven advocacy, analyzing human behavior and health. What kind of projects can you expect to see in this theme? For me, that looked like projects that use data to either predict or analyze human behavior and had a focus on how this could impact their health or helping individuals make decisions, informed decisions about their health. My first project in this theme is Watch.io. Watch.io is a mobile web application for studying the use of streaming services such as Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, and all other kind of platforms. A study by the University of Glasgow looked at adverse health effects of excessive screen time or watch time and found that it could be linked to cardiovascular diseases, type 2 diabetes, other cancers, and mortality. At the end of this study, they also concluded that an ideal watch time was a recommended less than 2 hours per day. With this in mind, I wanted to design my application in a way that would help address this issue. And so I developed this app to help users log their watch time so they could log into the app, start their watch time from start to finish, and they were also provided with a lot of information about their week or their data collected. One of those more important things was an indication of whether or not they were reaching the recommended limit of 2 hours per week. So you can see here, they had a little screen that showed them if they were in that limit, if they were doing well, they needed more work, or if they were over that 2 hour limit. In doing so, I was able to get some information on participants of my study. This first graph here was just kind of information for me to see what platforms out of all were getting the most watch time, and just to see if it was either a preference or if maybe these platforms were developed in a way to keep people's attention for longer. In my study, I found that Hulu had the most watch time out of all the participants. And so that was pretty cool to see and just look at in terms of the data. This graph right here is a little bit more related to the health side of it. This graph represents participants' screen time and the evaluation of their screen time. Looking at the chart, the entire circle actually represents that 2 hour limit. So the blue is the watch time of my average for users, and the purple is that excess that they had left. So based on this, you can kind of tell a little bit, but people that I studied were actually watching the correct amount of screen time given the recommendations from the university. That was about a 1.4 hour average. So the purpose was really to help people understand how their screen time might affect their health and to give them enough information to make informed decisions about their health or reduce their screen time if needed. My second project is my machine learning project from my data science and management class. This project predicted mental health issues using machine learning. Mental health is important and it's often difficult to diagnose or detect. Machine learning can be used as a tool to aid in detection or early intervention of mental health problems. Using a data source of over 290,000 data points, I was able to create a program that was a machine learning model or that used many machine learning models. This data went through a series of processes like cleaning, training, separating, and doing other necessary requirements to help reduce the bad predictions in the data. For me, I tested using 5 different models, and I sourced most of these models from other peer-reviewed articles and found what other people might use in the same case scenario. For me, my best model was an MLP classifier, which meant it had the highest prediction accuracy when it came to predicting the mental health issues. In order to actually do this, I had to use the data and separate it into 2 different categories. One was what I was looking for, so the mental health issues, and 2 was all the other information related to the participants or the data points in the study. This meant demographic data, personality questions, other health-related questions, and really just an all-inclusive kind of profile for the user or whoever was represented by that data. So by doing so, a separation of mental health history was able to let the models predict that by not having them together, but actually separated. This here is a heat map. So a heat map is really good at showing correlations in data and also making some good observations from just looking. You can see here, it's actually zoomed into the first row right now, which is my mental health history. There's a different variation of positive and negative correlations, with the darker green being positive and the darker kind of reddish orange being negative. This solid line through the middle is actually a 1-to-1 correlation, meaning anything that's listed here is the exact same question on the bottom, which is why it's a perfect correlation. Overall, these heat maps are really good at visualizations for large data sets. They help you check correlations, identify noise in the data that can result in bad predictions, and analyze patterns that you may see. My next project is my environmental sound study. This was a group project studying environmental sound in the Hack Theory classroom space, specifically looking at decibel levels. Noise and sound can positively and negatively impact classroom environments. Increased levels can impair cognitive function, reduce or raise stress levels, and even in extreme cases, damage eardrums. The recommended level for a study space, which is kind of like a quiet library environment, is 35 decibels. Anything over 70 is also considered harmful, but long extended periods of time with any sound can damage your health, depending on how loud they are and how long you're exposed to them. To do this, we placed 3 sensors that look like that over there in 3 different locations of the classroom. These were going for a solid week straight and collected data points that were put into a MySQL database. This database was accessible from our team website that we created, where we could check on indications of if these sensors were recording, what the latest reading was, and some more information just to make sure we were on track. Our project actually had 15,000 total data points by the end. And so we were able to have some pretty good ideas or predictions about the sound in the classroom. These 2 graphs represent kind of what we found in the study. The first one is a time series graph for the classroom, representing the rise and fall of decibel levels over time. You can see how there's a good variation between the data points and a lot of different readings coming in from the sensors. This is an example of just one sensor, so each sensor would have its own time series graph. It's important to note our classroom space is kind of unique because we have open lab hours from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. midnight. So this is primarily a good idea to look at when you're seeing this graph because it can look a lot different for other typical study places. This graph here is the average decibel level by hour. This really ties in to my idea or my theme of data-driven advocacy and studying it for health purposes. Through this graph, we were able to determine whether or not the classroom space is considered an ideal place to study. We found that it's actually not, because the lowest average decibel reading was 59.6 decibels, meaning it's not a great place to study if you're looking for that average, quiet, 35 decibel level. Now, a little bit about my capstone. My capstone also falls into my theme of data-driven advocacy and helping not only humans, but also pets. Perfect Pet is a website dedicated to promoting dog adoption and lowering return rates in those shelters. This purpose of my capstone was to help people match with a dog that best fits their lifestyle and reduce the rate of adoption returns to shelters. Here in Rome, we have a local shelter called PAWS, Public Animal Welfare Services, where they have an abundance of dogs waiting to be adopted each and every day in their shelters. One influential piece of information that I found was a recap of their 2024 experience with their pets. Specifically, I looked at dogs with a number in of 1,434. Out of those, 981 came out of the shelter through reasons being adoptions, reclaims, or also rescue transfers. My goal with my website was to not only help people match with dogs to get more shelter dogs coming out, but also to prevent more going in. So to reduce that return rate of ones that are already out. This is also about a 68% kind of like turnover rate. So the ones coming in, the ones going out, 68%. I'd love to see like an increase with that using a tool like my website. So that's kind of the goal. Through this, I had 3 design goals. The first one was to create an interactive website for users to match with one of 6 dog breeds. This was kind of a scoping question or scoping goal because there's a lot of dog breeds out there. And so I wanted to test how this would function with maybe the most popular ones and also the ones that were returned to the shelter most often. 2, I wanted it to function as a tool to aid local animal shelters in the dog adoption process. And 3, I wanted to prioritize functionality, aesthetics, and include 3 data visualizations to really help the user understand and want to use the website. My first design goal was my website development. Through this, I created 4 website pages, included a home page, a matching page, a resource page, and a visualization page. My key really component of my capstone project was my matching algorithm, which dealt with the task of matching a person to that specific breed. To do that, I did some trait comparisons. I found a similarity score between the user and the dog. And I had 16 questions to evaluate the user's personality and overall behavior and use that information to make a good informed decision through that similarity score. You can see here, this is my little dog. Her name is Jasmine. So I have a little bit of experience in this, owning a dog and also being an intern at an animal clinic for about a year. So this is kind of where it all began. So I wanted to show a little bit about what a perfect match for a user might look like. You can see here, I have a German Shepherd that has a similarity score of 0. So that actually represents a perfect score between the user and the pet, meaning there is no difference. They are exactly the same. That graph is represented by this large radar chart that indicates correlations to the user and the dog. So you can see here, one of them would be trainability, which would be the dog's characteristic, and then willingness to train, which would be the human. This graph here is an example of what an imperfect match might look like. So you can see how there's a little bit difference to the graph, and you can clearly see how the red is the dog and the blue is the user data. So you wouldn't get a German Shepherd with this match, but this is just an example so you can see the kind of difference between it. The second design goal I had was functionality and service. First, I wanted to make sure that it was both functional to users who are using the website and also on the other end, dog adoption shelters and local animal shelters. To do this, I wanted my traits that I included to be backed by research, including peer-reviewed articles and also websites pertaining to breeds, and meeting with some people here at Berry in the animal science department, Dr. Judith Wilson, who could give me some of her insights onto what she believes are important when it comes to adopting the dog. For her, she told me a little bit about how people aren't aware of the training commitment that it takes to owning a dog. So I wanted to make sure that was included. And then from my articles, I also found that behavior was among the top reasons why dogs were returned. So that is a huge one. That has to do with how they interact with children, other pets, strangers, and family. After the algorithm was completed, I met with Heather Cloud, who was the founder or co-founder of Road Trip Home Animal Rescue that she directed for 12 years. Heather Cloud gave me some great feedback about how my website could go into real world applications, and also some positive feedback of how it could impact the dog adoption process. When asked from her professional experience how she feels Perfect Pet website would help the dog adoption process, she stated that this could be a game changer, that many people go into the shelters looking for a dog that looks a certain way, or they have one in mind before they really get there. Oftentimes, these don't actually fit with their family, lifestyle, or other characteristics, leading to the dog being returned to the shelter. These dogs that are returned can have a failed adoption on their record, which can result in them not being as eligible for adoption in the future. My last design goal was to provide visualizations to include some of the missing data or important data that I wanted users to understand about these breeds. The first one was my behavioral traits of dog breeds, indicating each breed and how they interact with those people that we were talking about. So it's children, families, strangers, and other dogs. Here was like a centralized area for them to see that, compare, and just really find some more information on that. The middle graph is a comprehensive comparison of dog breeds. This is like the user chart or the comparison chart, but it's only dog breeds, so you can see their factors and their characteristics there. You can actually toggle this graph on and off, so you can look at one breed, you can look at two, you can look at all of them together, and just have an overall picture of the options. This last graph is an average lifespan of different dogs. So for this, I really wanted to focus on the time commitment that it takes to own a dog, and function as a way to let users know that it's not really a small commitment and that it can look different based on the breed, but overall just kind of give that visual for them to be able to make that determination of if it's right for them. So what's next? For my capstone, I was able to get an offer to pilot my website in a few different shelters from Heather Cloud, who connected me already with one shelter that wants to share it with people. So I plan to develop my website a little bit more before I'm ready for that, and before I give it to the shelter to use for public purposes, and just kind of explore that a little bit more. For me, I will be attending graduate school, the Barry's MBA program, and so I'm happy to stick around for another 2 years and continue my time at Barry. I've also accepted a position at the CC here at Barry, so I'll be working with other student entrepreneurs in their endeavors and kind of helping them guide them along the way. Lastly, I'll continue as a licensed insurance agent at State Farm right down the street and balance another school and work life experience. But I'm really excited for that. So thank you. That's my capstone and my time here at Barry. Any questions?